Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. We are back here with our friend, Tony Marolt. So excited to talk to him. He's an author, he owns his own company, and he's all about leadership. He is the chief leader, president and CEO of his own company, Lead Left, Grow Right, LLC. And from Kansas City, Missouri, let's welcome back Tony to the show. How are you today?
Hey, I'm great, Jill. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic. Thank you. It's been quite a few rainy days here in New York. How's the weather in Missouri?
It's been beautiful. Today it finally started raining. So,
All right. All right. Well, pleasure having you back here. I know we're going to recap a little bit about what we talked last week. And I see above your head something about carrot, egg, or coffee bean. We'll get to that in a sec. Let's recap our discussion from last week. Again, it's all about leadership. And last time we talked about, was it executing and setting up leadership, right? The experiments to help develop the best, the people to do their best in a
exactly.
sense. So what was that all about? We talked personal
Exactly.
development, right?
Yeah, we talked about how you can set up leadership experiments to develop people, and it can be at the individual level or it can be team development. So, in a team, it could be interdependent among the team members. Individual can also complement what you're doing in a team because each individual is unique and special, as we talked about. And why is it critical is because if you don't grow, then you're standing still. So you can't stay planted in the ground if you're going to grow. You got to sprout up. And we talked about how to first assess that and conduct a self-assessment, conduct some peer assessment, maybe some manager assessment. There's a variety of ways you can do that. And then you actually have to set up the experiment. So setting up the experiment, you want to make sure that the person is going to actually have an opportunity to grow. You've got to put some parameters around that, like, okay, when's this going to end, a particular assignment or situation? How am I going to report to you about it? How are we going to give each other feedback on it, etc.? And then you have to debrief
My
that.
apologies. My phone was on, not vibrate. My bad. So sorry.
Well, and then the last thing, after you conduct the experiment, you always want to debrief that experiment with the individual and with yourself and see what the learnings are. If it was a great experiment and someone really successfully stretched or gained knowledge or whatever the intent was, then you cover that. But you also, if someone didn't do well or did some things poorly, you do that as well. But you do it from a point of, as I talk about in the book, of if you're going to fail forward. So what are you learning from this, and what can you do to go onward from it? It should not be a slap down session because that's not the intent of development.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the gist of what we talked about last time.
Yep, absolutely. And for today, it's right above your head, right?
Yes.
Do you want to get into that right now? Yeah, a
Yeah,
little bit about this.
absolutely. I thought, I was going through some leadership things that I have, articles and stuff from the past, and these two really stuck out at me. So the first we're going to cover is called Carrot, Egg, or Coffee Bean, and it's about adversity. And the second, we're going to talk about General Colin Powell's rules of leadership and why it's important to study other leaders. So I'm going to read through this a scenario about coffee or carrot, egg, or coffee bean. And then at the end of that, Jill, I'd like to ask you maybe a couple of questions around adversity in your life and how you've overcome that. Okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So the story goes, today we're sharing a story with our staff called "Are You a Carrot, Egg, or Coffee Bean?" It's a story about perspective, adversity, and how you view things that are happening in your life. In a business that requires you to understand there are two sides to every coin, that everyone has their story to tell, that your perception is your reality, I found it an appropriate topic. So many times we get caught up in our own dilemmas and drama, but we forget that many of our own truths that we subscribe to are based on our point of view, our perspective. In an attempt to broaden their own view of things, as a reminder to myself, I decided to read it aloud to my team. The story goes like this. A young woman went to her mother and told her about her life and how things were so hard for her. She did not know how she was going to make it and wanted to give it up. She was tired of fighting and struggling. It seemed as one problem was solved, a new one arose.
Yeah.
Her mother took her to the kitchen. She filled 3 pots with water. In the first, she placed carrots. In the second, she placed eggs. And the last, she placed ground coffee beans. She let them sit and boil without saying a word. In about 20 minutes, she turned off the burners. She fished the carrots out and placed them in a bowl. She pulled the eggs out and placed them in a bowl. Then she ladled the coffee into a bowl. Turning to her daughter, she asked, "Tell me what you see." "Carrots, eggs, and coffee," she replied. She brought her closer and asked her to feel the carrots. She did and noted they were soft. She then asked her to take an egg and break it. After pulling off the shell, she observed the hard-boiled egg. Finally, she asked her to sip the coffee. The daughter smiled as she tasted its rich aroma. The daughter then asked, "What's the point, Mother?" Her mother explained that each of these objects had faced the same adversity, boiling water, but each reacted differently. The carrot went in strong, hard, and unrelenting. However, after being subjected to the boiling water, it softened and became weak. The egg had been fragile. Its thin outer shell had protected its liquid interior. But after being through the boiling water, its inside became hardened. The ground coffee beans were unique, however. After they were in the boiling water, they had changed the water. "Which are you?" she said to her daughter. "When adversity knocks on your door, how do you respond? Are you a carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean? Think of this. Which am I? Am I the carrot that seems strong, but with pain and adversity do I wilt and become soft and lose my strength? Am I the egg that starts with a malleable heart but changes with the heat? Did I have a fluid spirit, but after death, a breakup, a financial hardship, or some other trial in life, have I become hardened and stiff? Does my shell still look the same, but on the inside, am I bitter and tough with a stiff spirit and a hardened heart? Or am I like the coffee bean? The bean actually changes the hot water, the very circumstance that brings the pain. When the water gets hot, it releases the fragrance and flavor. If you are like the bean, when things are at their worst, you get better and change the situation around you. When the hours are darkest and trials are at their greatest, do you elevate to another level? How do you handle adversity? Are you a carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean? So with that, Jill, what are some times maybe where you've experienced adversity and how did you respond to that?
Well, let me just say for the record, I come across hard like a carrot always. Like I'm a little tough, but then I soften up. But I feel like I'm more of that coffee bean because I do try to stay out of the situation, look at it from a better perspective to make it better all around. So I think I'm a little mix of the carrot and the coffee bean. Adversity, I've faced a lot of adversity. I think we all have in our lives. Recently, currently dealing with my son's father and how in regards to we have a very small amount of child support that he pays, and I really believe he should pay more now because he's not helping out anymore, watching the kids. So the agreements has changed. He used to watch him every day, doesn't anymore. So, he's the one who suggested getting an attorney to fix things, and I said, we could be amicable about this. Let's agree on something. Why waste money that can go towards our child's college fund, a vacation for him? We're going to spend the amount of child support. It's going to be over a year in child support and on my end and your end, like for attorneys, doesn't make sense. Last week, I sent this really nice email being amicable and let's try to solve it this way and blah, blah, blah. And he wrote back kind of cold like that. Like I made like hard like a carrot, not wanting to. So no, let's just go to the courts, let them deal with it. And I was like, really? So I'm trying to be that coffee bean. And he even told me to call his attorney. I said, I'll call her. She didn't call me back. Like I'm trying to do everything that would help us before this gets to court and could be mean. So
exactly.
I put an email so I feel better with myself knowing that I at least tried, and I tried being that person to take the path of least resistance and make it easier, but he didn't want to. So you can't change someone when they're that way, but I know I
Right.
gave my all and tried my best to do it that way. So I feel like that's my latest challenge with adversity. And, that this story will just unfold a few months and weeks from now, I'm sure. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I look for the
Well,
greater
thank you.
good, and it's about the child, and it's about him, my little guy, my little son, and
Right.
not us, not your. And then he wrote right back a whole thing how I hurt him, and he's so hurt, and you were so mean to me. I said, we first of all, we dated for 6 months, and that was a long time ago. It's not about us and your hurt towards me. I said, there's times I've been mean to you, yes, and you've been mean to me. I said, but I don't care. It has nothing to do with that. This is about him. Let's refocus on him. But he's
Right.
still hurt over stuff that happened where
Right.
that's his
Right.
priority. That's bothering him more than let's do what's right for the boy. Like,
Yeah.
hello, our son. But okay, there you
Right.
go. I shared. That's me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing
You're
that
welcome.
personal story. It's like you, I've had adversity in my life as well. Just going through the Naval Academy, there were some really dark times and there were some really tough challenges. But those challenges are meant to be there. But I overcame them. In my case, a lot of it was through faith. A lot of it was through my friends, my company mates who helped hold me up. And so I've never thought of myself as a carrot. Um, the egg, sometimes I can relate to because over the years, as life hits you harder and harder, sometimes you have this. Well, we all have the ability to look back, and are we looking back on the positive, or are we looking back on all of the negative stuff? Do we let ourselves become a cynic, for instance, or not? And rightly or wrongly, I have a personality that can see the best in people, but I can also see the worst and how they could be so much better. So yeah, so that's what I have to overcome. And in our personal life, the same thing. We had a situation with our son when I was in the military that essentially forced me to get out of the military over a family issue. So, but we've been able to overcome. And resiliency is, and I talk about it a little bit in the book. It's tough, but you have to build it, and it's really like a muscle, right?
True.
You start off with a certain muscle, and the more you exercise, the stronger it gets. But in life, the exercising looks like, oh my gosh, I'm running into another horrible situation or one of life's challenges, and if I choose to overcome it or deal with it, then that muscle gets stronger. If I choose to fold like a carrot does in the hot water, then I'm not going to make the muscle any stronger. And over time, it's just going to get weaker and weaker. So, well, thank you for sharing again. And I hope
Thank
everyone
you.
out there and listening um, understands a little bit. And again, the challenge is, are you an egg or a coffee bean, or are you a carrot? And again, from my perspective, that is a choice as to what you want to be. Even if you're egg, even if your exterior is always hard, well, you can have control over whether you let it make you bitter
Yeah.
or cynical. So most of these are a choice. And the coffee bean, I love most of all because all of us can do that. We can make the situation better. We can infuse ourselves into the situation and try and make things as smooth as possible and as flavorful as possible so that everyone can enjoy life rather than pitting each other against each other. So,
Yeah.
okay, well, great. Well, I think we'll move on to he's a huge influence on me. I consider him one of the greatest leaders ever, and that's General Colin Powell. And um, my position is, if you're a great leader or even a good leader, you can become greater or better if you start studying other leaders. And of course, at the Naval Academy, I was exposed to many, many leaders because that is a heavily driven leadership school for all the right reasons, because you're going to be officers in the United States Navy. Um, but I carried that on past that into corporate life, and I studied lots and lots of leaders because not once did I ever find, oh, that's not something I can learn from. So I thought I'd briefly go over General Powell's uh, leadership rules.
Sure.
And I'm not going to get into them too much, but I will comment periodically. So hopefully these will resonate. One or more will resonate, sort of like my analogy about taking leadership skills out of the closet and trying them on. So the first one is, it ain't as bad as you think. It will look better in the morning.
Got it.
And, you know, we sometimes we think everything's going to be as bad as it's going to be. Sometimes we just have to let time sit for a little bit before things can look better. And that's perspective. Get mad, then get over it. So we're all humans. We all get mad, but you aren't going to do anyone any favors if you can't quickly get over the mad and say, okay, and it relates back to the carrot, egg, and coffee. What am I going to do now? I'm mad, but now I'm done. What am I going to do to solve the problem or take on the challenge? Avoid having your ego so close to your position that when your position falls, your ego goes with it. And this gets to, so many people are tied to their job or their position. They're a manager of this or the CFO or whatever, and they lose their job for whatever reason or get downgraded, a variety of different things, and they sulk about it. And that's because their ego is all wrapped up in that rather than their ego being wrapped up in who they are and what they can learn.
Yeah.
Number 4, very positive. It can be done! Exclamation point. Humans solve amazing, complex problems all the time, but they don't do it by not engaging. They engage heavily and they ask good questions and they seek advice from others, and usually teams can solve a problem. So it can be done. I totally agree with all of these. Be careful what you choose. You may get it. Be careful what you choose. You may get it. So you may be pining after whatever it is in life, a new car, a new job where you have lots of amenities, whatever that might be. But sometimes it comes at a cost. So be careful what you choose because you might get it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let adverse facts stand in the way of a good decision. So those facts that maybe seem at odds, make your decision as objectively as you can and as much to support the greater good. Often there's no perfect decision, but when you make the decision, do it despite adverse facts standing at you. You can't make someone else's choices. You shouldn't let someone else make yours. And that, you know, to me is, you can't make someone else's choices. Sometimes we get into situations where we're hoping we can change the other person's opinion, and sometimes we can, but often in personal life, we can't. People are who they are, and it's very hard to change people. It can be done, but that shouldn't be the primary source. And then don't let someone else's choices. If I have this in my own life with some of my children. They've made some really bad choices, but I can't let that affect how my choices are then made.
Yeah.
Check small things. And he's talking about attention to detail. Oftentimes people rush through life just looking at high level, but sometimes the small things are really, really important. In the military, it's okay, have you shined your shoes well? Do you have all your medals on correctly, et cetera, et cetera? What does your personal space look like? All those things are important because it sets an example not only for yourself, but for others. And they come in and they look and they'll say, wow, they're out there telling me I need to be really shipshape and sharp all the time. And then I went in their cabin and their clothes are thrown around and, the bed wasn't made, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of different things in life go on, but make sure you are paying attention to the small things. This is a big one. Share credit. So many leaders, I find, at least in the corporate world, the team does a really great job, and then the leader will go and take all the credit for it and never give it back to the team. And teams resent that. They know, because they'll hear, oh, yeah, Tony went up to the executive vice president and gave this PowerPoint presentation and didn't say a word about us and what we did. It was all about how great he did on the job. So share credit. It's sort of like the in the leadership quotient, right? Sharing your knowledge, sharing your power. You do it in a thoughtful way. Share the same credit. Everyone helps you to get to certain things or get things done. What's so hard about acknowledging that other people contributed? Everyone knows that anyway. They know that you didn't do it personally. So just be honest about it and share credit. Remain calm and be kind.
Oh.
And that gets into, something I talked about encouraging the heart. Remain calm, be kind to other people, and kind of resurrect the platinum rule that I say is different from the golden rule, which is golden rule is treat everybody as you want to be treated yourself. But the platinum rule is treat everybody as they want to be treated. Okay. So be kind and encourage their hearts.
Beautiful.
Have a vision, but be demanding. So you can't just come up with a vision and then let everyone else attack the vision, and you don't hold, demanding. He's saying not being a terror, but when you be demanding, it's saying be accountable and be accountable yourself and hold others to that same accountability, or none of you are ever going to reach the vision that you're trying to espouse, right? Don't take counsel of your fears or naysayers, because all that is wasted energy. If you spend all your time thinking about your fears and, oh my gosh, is this going to happen if I do that, etc., or listening to people who are saying, oh, that's never going to work. We've done that before. Whatever the naysaying might be, don't take counsel of them. You've got to trust yourself. And then perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. In the military, a force multiplier is like taking, it's kind of have to go to algebra a little bit, but if normally you can do X, if you're always optimistic about, we can get this done, and it has to do with attitude, right? Well, then you can become a 10X multiplier. Everyone will do better. If the leader allows themselves or their teams to be down all the time, that just drags everything down. But if you're optimistic, hey, we can do this. Oh, yeah, that's a bad thing to happen to us, but let's see if we can come up with a solution. Well, then you're really multiplying, and your chance of achieving a vision or a goal is that much higher by X factors. So I just thought it would be important to share. I mean, he was a general in the Army. You can read his background, and he has a biography out. And then he served as Secretary of State. This is someone who served this country very, very well and hard, and learned a lot of things growing up through all of his personal life and into his military life. So highly recommend reading not just his rules of leadership, but everything else in the book if you get a chance. It's a phenomenal book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We still got 3 minutes left, Tony.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some potential podcasts. And again, I welcome anyone to give me some direction because I've been in leadership for a long time, so I can address a lot of different issues or different topics if they're interesting to you. So maybe we'll talk about a couple of things I've been thinking about are personal and professional leadership traits, and how do they translate from your personal life to your professional life and backwards, vice versa. Leadership challenges across generations, ethnic cultures, corporate cultures, etc. I think originally I said last time, so I didn't knowingly tell an untruth, but so we're going to talk about that this time. But that's a pretty difficult one, but that is reality today. Quite frankly, it's not just today; it's always been there. It's just gotten more press, but it is more complex, and the challenges are more complex today. So maybe we can talk about that for a bit as well.
Thank you. Sounds like. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you want to reach me, again, go to leadleftgrowright.com and pull up one of the information notes and send a note to me that way. Reach out to me at tony.marolt@gmail.com or call me directly at 816-694-4656. And if I don't answer, just leave a message and I'll get right back to you.
Great. Thank you so much. And if we want to purchase your book,
you can go to the Leadership Quotient and purchase it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Jill.
Tony Marolt in the house as always. You have a fantastic day. Stay cool. Stay dry.
You too. Yeah.
Working on that here. Yeah. In the New York area for sure. And you have a fantastic day. Thank you so much.
You too. All right. Thank you
Bye,
so
Tony.
much, Jill.
Bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.